Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sisterly. As always, you're here with your co-hosts, Olivia and Rebecca, and we're so excited to chat with you all again. It feels like it's been a minute, even though it hasn't. It's been a week,
Yeah.
as per usual. But we're really excited to talk with you today. We're going to be talking a lot about, well, I don't know if this is an eloquent way to put it, but this is how I put it in my notes, which is just things you probably feel bad about but shouldn't feel bad about.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into our topic today, we want to do a little check-in like we always do. And I wouldn't say that these are, business critical updates, as they say in the biz, but just general ponderings that I think are important to share. Today is that I started the second season of Euphoria, which part of me wants to say if you're not watching it, you should. And the other part of me is like, I
Maybe
don't know.
don't.
I don't know if I would tell you to watch it
Yeah,
because I don't know that I like it.
I feel the same way. I watch it and I keep watching it, but I also don't know that I like it. I like the costumes. I
Yeah, costumes
like
are great.
the actors, like Zendaya, Stan, like here
Yeah,
for all the rest of them. Like they're
you guys know
amazing.
we love
They're
Zendaya.
they're all
Okay.
gorgeous. However, the plot, I don't know if I am here for it. I just like cannot relate to this high school experience in any way, shape, or form. You know who I can
Yeah,
relate to? The only character I can relate to?
I know who you're going
Lexi.
to say. Yeah, Lexi, obviously. She's the
Just
only
a
one.
theater kid trying to live her life and stay out of trouble.
Even still, though, like, as much as I like Lexi, I don't even think she is, like, relatable enough. Like, she's the
She still
most
goes to
relatable, but, like,
parties. I'm
she still
like,
goes to
I'm
parties
not
and,
at
like,
this
wears red
scene.
lipsticks to school, which there's nothing wrong with that, but, like, I would have never worn red lipstick to high school.
Yeah, I don't think I owned it.
No, I didn't wear lipstick to school.
Yeah.
Once again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like
Do love
you're
Lexi.
waking
Do love
you're
Fez.
waking up at 6 a.m. to go to high school. Like, who is putting on like, you have to put on lip liner for that. Anywho, that's beside the point. But yeah, Jack and I started season 2 of Euphoria today, and I understand that it's incredibly well filmed, well
Mhm.
shot. It's
Yeah, it's like
like
it's very interesting to watch. It's like cinematic,
yeah.
great costumes.
Yeah, cinematography A++. But there's just like there's so many drugs going on, which as I have been told as we've gotten older, like is more common in high school than it was
Mhm.
when I was like when we were in high school. Like people were not like doing heroin when we were in high school that I
Right.
knew of, at least. I mean, not to say that I
I
was
don't
so in the know, but
yeah, I don't think that was happening.
there's just like so many drugs. There's so many parties, like wild ragers
I
that I'm
know.
like,
I
whose
just like
house are you at?
don't recall that. Like even though like I know I wasn't invited to like parties that existed, I would like hear about them if they happened, but they just like weren't that wild and they were not this frequent. I just like cannot
Yeah.
relate in any way. And I feel like the show in general just stresses me out just because of like Rue's overarching just like the whole being an addict
Addiction is
issue.
stressful. Yes.
Yeah. So
Every plot
it's
line is
tough.
stressful. There isn't one that's like
Low key.
chill.
Yeah, there's no low key plot lines in
I
Euphoria.
feel like in the beginning of the first season there were, there's like finding love, there's like breakups and drama that come with that. Of course it's all escalated to like a level that's not relatable, but like the general plot line you kind of get.
Right.
This one like there are a lot of like drug themed ones that I guess I just like can't relate to, or like assault, like like just general beating up assault that I'm like I don't understand.
Mhm.
Just like a lot of
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like it's interesting. Like I have heard like some criticisms of the show or that it's like a little bit sensationalist, like it looks for like the most dramatic things sort of out of
Right.
each of these storylines, which I could understand. Um yeah, I just feel like I can't tell if it's just that I like am too far removed from like what actual high school is like in certain places these days or if it is in fact sort of dramatizing like beyond what's relatable. I
Or
don't
maybe
know.
I just like don't
I
understand art. Like
maybe
sometimes I'm like maybe I
yeah.
just don't get it. Like maybe
Maybe
I'm
I'm
not
just
smart
like
enough to
not
understand this.
intellectual enough for it. But you know what? At the same time, I keep watching it. Like, so
Totally. Cuz part of me is like maybe they're sensationalizing it like on purpose.
Right, right. It's like I do wanna know what happens. It's like when I watch Succession, like, they're all, like, bad people, and it's supposed to be, like, a
Yeah.
satire, and so it's like it is kind of a comedy, but it's also like I keep watching, so
It's the same thing that for me, at least when I watched Breaking Bad. I was like, "I don't like any of these people," but now I
yeah,
just
yeah,
have
they're
to know what
not
happens.
likable.
But it's hard because, like,
Yeah.
I love the actors, although this show has completely ruined Jacob Elordi for me.
No.
Like, ruined him.
Yeah,
Because
he's a psychopath now.
for those of you who have watched The Kissing Booth know that that is where that man started, and their characters are kind of similar, but
Like, the good parts.
no, I don't know if there are any good parts in Nate on Euphoria.
Yeah.
But, like, his character in The Kissing Booth also kind of had, like, an aggression problem, but in, like, a, "Oh, like, teenage boy, like, picks fights," and then
Yep.
this one, it's like he's a sociopath.
Yeah.
It's
It's, like,
like
a little bit next level.
but I loved him in The Kissing Booth, I was, like, obsessed with him.
And now it's hard to keep liking him.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's just so evil in this show,
Yeah.
and I know I should separate, character from person. I also don't know him at all, nor will I ever know him, so it doesn't really matter how I feel about him, but, still makes me sad.
Yeah.
Although he has a better haircut in Euphoria than he had
Kissing booth.
in
Mhm.
Kissing Booth. His haircut in Kissing Booth was rough. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Nate and, Jacob Elordi, or however you say his last name. Maybe he'll be in, like, something else. I mean, I could do a whole separate episode on my thoughts on him specifically,
Yeah.
um,
And
but I
we've said
won't.
before we should do just, like, a whole episode on, like, men in movies that we liked, like, when we were younger or even now.
Or even now, yeah.
There's so much content there. Anyway,
Watching Zendaya also only makes me think of Tom Holland, but it's fine. We're moving
I
on.
know. The whole time I'm watching her, I'm like, if Tom Holland was here, none of this shit would be going down. If he was here, he'd have this school figured out real quick. Zendaya would not be doing drugs with randos, you know?
All I keep thinking about is him, like, behind the camera while they're filming being like, "That was amazing. Like,
Yeah. Oh my
great
god, I
job."
love seeing all the photos of, like, him, like, just, like, chilling on the set. I'm like, "Oh, they're love.
Ugh,
Too
they're
pure.
so cute.
Too
Anywho.
good."
I'm
Who's your
like,
favorite
I sound like a
character
12-year-old, sorry. My favorite character,
on Euphoria?
probably Fez.
Yeah. Oh,
Love
Fez is
Fez.
so great.
He's the drug
Yeah.
dealer, but
He's a
he is
drug
my
dealer with a
favorite.
good heart,
With a
so
good
we love
heart
that.
and bad
He looks out for his
circumstances.
friends.
Yeah, love Fez,
We love
love
him.
Lexi.
Yeah. I love Lexi especially 'cause
I
she's
love Rue too, even though, like,
relatable.
she's very stressful. I also like Jules. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anyone I'm forgetting. I kinda hate the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I like those 4, and I
Yeah.
don't know if anyone else is
Like,
worth mentioning. What about you?
no, I think, yeah, Fez and Lexi are my faves, and I like that the lens that I feel like I see this season going for them. I hope they keep going that way because I like them.
Mhm. I know, I need someone to believe in, for
I
the
know, I
love of
need to
God,
root for
like
someone, like,
yeah,
give me
seriously.
something. I need some hope. I do like Rue, but I also Rue stresses me out because she's so self-sabotaging that
Yeah,
she gives me constant angst, and I'm like, I have trouble rooting for her when she gives me all this angst, and especially when they
totally.
show scenes with her and her younger sister, and you can tell how much she's hurting her younger sister. It really makes me, like, stressed out.
Yeah, I think you and I don't have a lot of, like, firsthand experience with drug
With
addiction
addiction, yeah.
or, like, someone in our life that suffers from addiction,
Mhm.
so I think from an outsider's perspective, it's so easy to be like, "Can you just not do this? Like, can you
Right, right, right,
just,
right, right. Could you
like, go
just,
to
like,
go to
yeah,
rehab and, like, get clean or whatever?" And obviously,
it's yeah, a
it's,
lot
like,
easier said
so
than
much more
done.
complicated than that,
Yep.
but I think even just because we don't have that perspective, like, sometimes watching it, it's, like not that it's I guess yeah, it's just not relatable as much. Like, I have a hard time
Yeah.
relating or being, like
It's hard to just,
not
like, put
being
yourself in her
irritated that
shoes.
we can't, like, can't just fix this, and I think
Right.
it's just because we don't, like well, I don't mean to speak for both of us, but, like, I don't have any
Yeah, 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 I don't.
experience in that area, so it's, like, I have to remind myself that I
Yeah.
don't really know what it's like.
Right.
Um, I would be curious to know, like, I should do some research online and see if there are people who, like, feel like she's portraying it,
In a,
you
like, a
know,
realistic
in an
way, yeah, or
authentic way.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be good to know.
because, like, from what I have, learned and understood about addiction, like, it's incredibly complicated, it's, like,
Mhm.
so challenging, so, um but yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes just because I really like her character, and it's also I think it's also hard to see, like, a kid dealing with that, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Um, so anywho, those are my thoughts on Euphoria.
Yep, yep.
I will continue to watch, even though I don't know if I like it watching or not.
Yeah.
This happens
I
to me
like
sometimes with shows. I'm like, "I don't even know if I like this, but I'm gonna keep watching
well, that's
it."
the thing, like, sometimes I finish a show or, like, an episode of show, and I'm like, "I don't know that that made me happier." Like, that episode might have made me just, like, stressed, but it also, like, was compelling, and so then I keep watching
Yeah,
it
well,
anyway.
it's, like, well done.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Like, there's
felt
some shows you watch that, like, just, like, fill you up and make you warm and fuzzy inside, like Ted Lasso, and there's some
Yeah.
shows that are just kinda like art or, like, yeah, well done, and you're like, "This kinda made me feel shitty, but
I
they did
felt
a
that
good
way
job doing it."
when I watched, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, and I was like, "This show is so well done, it's so compelling, but, like, I hate watching it at the
Yeah.
same time." I was like, "I need to watch it, but it's also deeply upsetting."
Yep, yep.
But sometimes you gotta do it for the art
Yeah.
that I obviously totally understand, and the symbolism, and the
Mhm.
metaphors,
Yep.
and yeah, yep.
So, wrapping up our discussion on Euphoria, we'll turn to today's topic, which is, as Olivia said, things you probably feel bad about but shouldn't. And like also known as like feelings that are natural to have, but that, require some management.
So, one of our inspirations for this topic was actually from one of our favorite Instagram therapists.
Hmm.
I recommend them in addition to a licensed therapist.
Yeah. To be clear,
Um,
Instagram therapy does not replace actual
Actual
therapy.
therapy, yeah, but it's a good supplement. I do
Hmm.
think this woman is like an actual
Yeah,
therapist,
yeah, she is. But like
but
she's not treating
she's
you
just
through
treating me, yeah.
Instagram. So
So, but one thing that she talked about one time was how jealousy is like a very normal feeling, and we don't need to be like hard on ourselves about feeling jealous. But what we do need to kind of manage is how we take that jealousy and then like put it into action, or what
right.
actions come from that. And we did a whole episode actually on jealousy. It's called Jealousy. And in that one we talked more so about like jealousy.
Comparison, jealousy, and like social
Yeah.
media and
Yeah, so we won't get too much into that today because we have talked about it before, but it's kind of what sparked our interest in talking about this.
mhm. And I also just want to say, because I'm not sure if you mentioned it before, but that Instagram therapist's name is Nedra Tawab. So if anyone
Okay.
wants to check her out, it's Nedra. And then her last name is Tawwab.
Yeah, I love her. She's great, and she posts like little things daily that like really make you think.
Yeah, she has such good gems on there.
Um, but so we have like a few that we kind of want to go through and just talk about once again why you don't need to feel bad about that, but how you need to kind of put those thoughts into perspective
Hmm.
almost so that they don't control you. And these are just once again our thoughts on these different topics, and we always love to hear your thoughts as well. And we're also not experts. We're just going through life trying to figure this ish out like everybody else. So if you think we're wrong, let us know.
Yeah. So one of the feelings that I thought of for this topic was, I guess it's sort of a feeling, but like feeling the need to overshare or to share your feelings with others to get their feedback. Basically, like the need to seek out other people's advice on maybe a situation. And I thought of this because I find this is a thing that I have to like check myself for often, which is I have this instinct to when something happens and I'm trying to sort out how I feel. I sometimes have trouble internally figuring out how I feel or what the next right thing is to do. So then I outsource it by telling other people that I care about the situation and to get their thoughts. And like that's a very normal thing for people to seek advice from friends or from family and to want their input. But it can like cross a line if you're like relying on them to make the decision for you, or you're like constantly unloading everything that has ever happened to you to like a team of friends and family, and you like need their input in order to move forward. And sometimes that's also unfair to do to people who maybe don't have the bandwidth to take on all of the things that you might be unloading. So like I have a tendency when something happens in my life to be like, let me talk to Olivia about it, let me talk to Mike about it, let me talk to my other best friend about it, let me talk to, so and so about it. Like I'll seek out a lot of opinions, and it's cuz I'm kind of like crowdsourcing what my next move should be, and if like how I'm feeling is the right way to feel or what I should do next. And that's it's a natural thing to want to get other people's opinions and to tell people that you care about things that are troubling you, but it can become like a bit of a problem if you feel like you can't actually trust yourself to make a decision on your own, or you feel compelled to tell everyone about what's happening for you without figuring out if they can actually take that on, or if they want to take that on, or if you're capable of making the decision on your own without getting everyone's opinions first.
I completely agree. And one of the things too that I really like that you said is this idea that sometimes people don't have the bandwidth to handle you like unloading kind of a situation. And I think it's really important that you have people in your life that you can vent to or seek advice from when you need it. But I think it's so important to kind of check in with people before you do that of like, hey, do you have like the ability to handle
Right. Like,
this
is this a good
right
time for you
now?
right now? Like, I'm having something going on. Like, would you be able to talk with me about it?
I have one friend and we actually will like text each other often being like, "Can I vent for a second?" or like, "Can I
Yeah.
complain about something for a second?" And I think it's like important because if she said to me like, "Actually, I'm so sorry. This is not a good time for me right now." I would be like, "Oh, of course." Like I
Hmm.
don't think you necessarily need to ask every single person before you share something with them, but I do think if you especially if you go to one person constantly or the same few people constantly and like
Hmm.
want to like share a lot with them to get their feedback or opinion or help you, like check in with yourself and think, hey, like, should I ask and just see if they have the time or like the bandwidth to, you know, make space for this issue to solve with me? But I think it's a very natural instinct to rely on others to help you with things that you're going through, you
Yeah.
know?
And it's like community is so important. So, like, it is really helpful to get people's feedback or to get people's thoughts or perspective on a situation that you might not have. So, definitely nothing wrong with it. But it can also be like to a point if you're taking it too far, which I have been known to do.
um, Another one that we wanted to talk about was having a lot of emotions. And when I say this, I feel like it's kind of personal for me because my whole life, I think people have called me like sensitive
Mm,
or like dramatic.
yeah.
And I think it always made me feel bad about myself that
Right.
people
Like you
would
felt
say
like
that
you
I
were
was
like too much
sensitive.
or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It felt like the emotions that I had were too much for other people to handle. And it made me feel like the emotions I was having were bad. I think it's important to put that into perspective because I don't think it's a bad thing that I'm sensitive. It's like taken me a
Definitely
long
not.
time to kind of come around to that. I actually think it's good because it means that I'm pretty perceptive of other people and
Yeah, it
how
makes you
they're
more
feeling.
empathetic.
Yeah, and I try to, be aware of my surroundings and how other people are doing and all of that. But I do think that what people were trying to convey to me when they were saying those things is that sometimes I would let my emotions lead first. And I don't
Hmm.
think that's always a bad thing, but sometimes it would lead to me, if I was upset, like reacting immediately with my emotions before
Like
thinking it
processing it.
through.
Yeah, thinking it through.
Yeah, so I would just, if I thought a friend had wronged me, I would immediately confront them about it and be like, that wasn't cool, and just have all of that come from like my first instincts instead of taking a second to be like, what's actually bothering me? Like, what do I think is worth mentioning? Um, so I think, especially women, I feel like we do that a lot
Yeah.
on this podcast. We're like, especially for women, but it's true. And well, in different ways. I guess from the woman's perspective, a lot of times we are told that we are too emotional
Mhm.
um, if we react
Yeah.
in
Told to
any
relax.
way. Yeah, we're told to. Oh my god, if you ever tell me to relax or calm down, you better back up.
Yeah, you better run.
You better run. um, but I do think that that's something that women are really hard on themselves about, especially in like, this might be a silly like example, but when you think about a breakup, if a guy breaks up with a girl, a lot of times she's kind of considered crazy if she gets really emotional about it or
Mm.
like has a hard time moving on from it. Um and I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think that we should be allowed to have the time and space to process all of the emotions that come up in a given situation. In the example of a breakup, I think there are a lot of things that come up. It's like sadness, grief, maybe some relief, anger,
Mhm.
confusion. Like there are a lot of things you have to sift through, and that's okay. But I do think once again, it's like I was saying in my situation, I realized that having a lot of emotions is not a bad thing, but I do need to be aware of the fact that I have a lot and that they come up often, and I need to know how to sift through them and also make space to process them myself before I just kind of unleash them.
Mhm.
Um because it can go a little I'm like it can go a little crazy. It sounds like I'm like psycho, but it
No,
just
it's just
like
like I think giving yourself the time to realize that like I feel like your first instinct emotion isn't always the underlying
yeah,
emotion or doesn't always convey what you really want to say. And so it's good to know that about yourself. Or if you're a person who has like strong emotions or strong initial reactions to things, to be like self aware and be like, all right, like this is how I feel. Let's see how I feel in 5 minutes. Like, let's
yeah,
see how I feel in an hour. And then, like, think through those and then be like, okay, confirmed, still feel this way. And now I want to talk about it. And I have thoughts formed on how to approach it.
yeah,
Another thing that we were thinking about was, when you feel like you are sort of comparing how you look to someone else or wishing that you looked like someone else or differently than how you look. And I think that that can be, unfortunately, very natural in our society to compare bodies or features and to feel like somehow yours is lacking in some way or that someone else maybe just has something that you want or wish that you had. And it's not helpful to then, beat yourself up about the fact that you have these feelings because like our society really makes that highly likely that you would have those feelings. Like we have entire industries driven by like, trying to look like an ideal sort of type or look or style. And it's just kind of inevitable that you might take in some of that messaging as much as you might try to avoid it. So having feelings of comparison or feeling less than or feeling like you want to look like a certain way is totally understandable and natural, but you want to be aware that it's not helpful to you to take that too far. So you don't want to be criticizing yourself to the point of really harming yourself or trying to reach some sort of standard that doesn't exist or changing who you are and not appreciating like the things that you already have that are wonderful for the sake of trying to look like some sort of, ideal type or whatever is out there. And it's also important to like I remember thinking about this when I was younger. Like I was certainly susceptible to media and like trying to look thin and, whatever the standard beauty ideal was. And I would find myself looking in the mirror criticizing myself. I'd be like, oh, like I need to lose like this, or like, oh, look at my little like stomach or whatever. And like standing right next to me in the bathroom is like my younger sister, who is also looking at herself in the mirror, thinking about her own body now, because I'm standing there pointing out all my own whatever flaws, like made up or real. And that's teaching her not only that like that's a normal thing to do, but also like we have different bodies and I'm criticizing mine, and that could lead her to think that I'm also criticizing hers, or that she should be criticizing hers. And it's hard when you're a kid to think about that, but it's a thing that I try to think a lot more about now that I realize that being too critical of myself, and especially saying that out loud or around others, can actually harm other people in addition to harming me.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said as per usual. um, but I think it's so normal to feel like you wish you looked like someone else, or
Hmm.
you wish you looked different. And it's actually interesting because they were just talking about this in Euphoria in the last episode I watched. One of the characters is like she feels like shit. Like she just feels like shit one day, and they make these like in an artistic way this like commentary on how everyone tells you to just like love
Oh
yourself
yeah, there's
and
like
love
this like
yourself.
toxic positivity, toxic self-love,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And it literally just ends with like 20 women around her screaming at her like love
You're
yourself, you
perfect, you
know?
love yourself, you're beautiful.
You're
Yeah.
beautiful. And it's like because I think there's a lot of that on the internet too. It's like you should just love your body. Like you should just love yourself. That's how you should feel. You should just feel amazing because you're you. And like that's a wonderful idea.
Right. Would love
Um
for that to be the
would
case,
love for that to be the
however.
case. Would love to wake up every day being like, I am 1,000% perfect in every way. Like, that's amazing. Wish we all felt that way. But it's very normal to not feel that way and to wish that you could change certain parts of yourself. And I think it's just important to acknowledge you feel that way. And I I just think it's like so tricky because it's really unique for every individual. But I think what's so important is to not spend so much time wishing you were someone else or that you looked a different way that you don't enjoy the life in front of you, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. You
Yeah.
know, that you
I
don't.
always think, sorry, not to interrupt you. You just made me think of, I always look at pictures of myself in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and I always think, "Oh, I look so good." Like I'll look at
Yep.
past me and I'll be like, "Oh, like I'll just remember my mental state during that time and how critical I was like of my body or of certain
Mm-hmm.
things on me." And then I'll look back at the photos and I'm like, "What was I talking about? Like I look
Yeah.
healthy. I look good. I look fine." And then I'm like, that's certainly what I'm going to say 5 years from now looking at the photos of me right now. So why am I wasting my time criticizing me when like future me is going to be like she looked great. So
Totally.
I try to remind myself of that, because I like look back at me and I'm like I remember my thought spirals at that time, and I'm just like, where did that come from? Look at me. I was fine.
Yeah. It's like, how do we continue through our day, even when we wake up and are like, wish this certain part of me looked different? It's like, that's okay. Because I think we're so often told to try and not feel negatively about ourselves. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to. Like,
Yeah.
no one, like, you don't choose to feel negatively about yourself. Like,
Right. No one's choosing that option.
right. So it's like, how can we continue through the day and try to not miss out on our lives because we were wishing we were something else?
Yeah.
And I wish I had an answer. Like, wouldn't
Yeah.
that be great?
If only.
If we just like had the answer for how to stop that from encroaching your brain, but we don't. But I think what I try to tell myself every day is like, I still want to enjoy my life. I
Mhm.
want to enjoy it. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have a really bad time at a party or at a dinner or whatever because I'm self conscious. And that sucks, mainly because I missed out on, moments for me to feel great, because I was so worried about something that no one else probably sees. But when we can in certain moments, like try to still enjoy our lives. Sometimes I'll be at like certain like occasions or whatever, and I won't take pictures because I know that I'm not feeling super great in that moment and I really want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And, I'm not there's nothing wrong with me. I should be able to take pictures if I want to. But like, if that's something that's stressing you out, like, you don't have to capture every single moment, even though we live in a society that makes us feel like if it's
Mhm.
not captured, it didn't happen.
Right.
Um, Anywho, I think we could talk about this forever, but I just think that it kind of boils down to trying to remember to enjoy your life. Um, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and we were talking about how this specifically affects women, but just in general, I think in our society, we tell each other that we are supposed to get over something or someone pretty quickly. I feel like
Mhm.
it's the plot of like half of the rom-coms that we watch is like a woman who can't get over a guy.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
about trying to get her over this dude. And I think it's okay that there are things that happen to us in our lives that follow us for a really long time.
Mhm.
You know, that there are people who have come into our lives. Oftentimes it's like in a negative way, and something has happened that we remember for longer than it feels like we should.
Yeah.
And I think that that's okay. I think it's okay that it it's carried with us because it clearly had an impact in some way. I think what I try to remember is like sometimes you'll have like one thing that's happened to you that kind of like comes up for you a lot. And you're like, why? Like, why do I keep thinking about this? Like, this is stupid. I should just get over it. It's like, great. Wouldn't it be wonderful once again if we had the answers for that of like how to just get over it? Um, but sometimes it's like, okay, let's like sit down, like mentally in my brain, sit down and like think about why I keep thinking about this, like why it seems unfinished in my brain.
Mhm.
And I don't know that everything is gonna like be wrapped up with a nice bow at the end. You know, people always talk about closure.
Yep. 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 Yep.
I gotta hate that word because I don't know that you ever fully get closure from certain things in your life. But it's like, how do you allow yourself the space and like the kindness to have things come up for you, even when you think you should be over them? But once again, not let them control your life or
Yeah.
stop you from moving forward. Um, because I think trying to just get over it is someone's way of saying, please don't bring this up. I don't feel like hearing
Right.
about
Like your
it.
feelings are burdening me now. Like stop being like down about it because it's not as fun for me.
Yeah, and if if that's the case, maybe don't talk to them and maybe like talk to your therapist.
Yeah.
Because like your therapist is literally never going to tell you to get over
Yeah, literally just this is just another plug for therapy. Like I
Yeah.
highly recommend if you're trying to get over something or someone, talk to a therapist about it.
Although they would never admit to this, I feel like it's legitimately a therapist's job to never say like get over it.
Yeah. There's like a code somewhere. There's an unwritten
Yeah, they
code. Like
sign
don't tell
a
them to
piece of
get over it.
paper. Yeah, don't tell someone to get over it and move
Yeah.
on. But like, you know, uh, think of ways in which you can take steps to kind of not necessarily rewrite something, but like continue to move forward. It's like not
Yeah.
moving on, but moving forward,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
that
yeah. Just
makes
like yeah,
sense.
that's such a good way to put it. Like moving forward instead of just like it's not like you have to forget it all and dump it right there. It's like no, you bring it with you, but you also keep
Yeah.
going.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that. I like that visualization, Rebecca. Of yeah, it's like you don't just stay there. You carry it with you, but you keep
Right. But you
going.
keep going and as you keep going, you also acquire new things, like better things, things that
Yep.
like make the walk easier. Yeah. No, I
And
think
I
that's
think
so true. I think I heard something recently where someone was also saying they were talking about how they struggled sometimes when they were like feeling down or feeling sad, but also like didn't want to sit in that all day long. And I think for
mhm,
something like trying to get over something or someone, like one way to try to do it is to just like admit that you feel that way and just like almost assign yourself a certain amount of time to either feel those feelings and be sad and then decide to do something else with your day, or if the feelings are too great at that stage to do that, to just be like, I'm going to take 1 hour of my day to do something that's not feeling like thinking and feeling about this thing. I'm going to go do
mhm.
one other thing. So I feel like I've done something else with my day as well. And then like return to it. And you can keep building on that until it feels like less and less of your day is consumed by those feelings or until you can kind of put like, okay, those feelings are in. this time slot now. I'm going to let myself feel how I feel, and then I'm going to move on to other things.
Yep. No, and I think that's great because sometimes you'll have like that feeling come up and you're like, no, 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 I can't deal with this right now. And like, I think that that's a a coping mechanism that is super fair and makes a lot of sense, but probably won't serve you in the long run. So you have to, even if you can just take a little bit of time to like open that, or in the reverse of what you're saying is like take as much time as you need and then like have a little bit of time where you kind of close that away. It's like you can't do it like one way or the other where it's like you just feel everything all the time and only
Yeah.
sit in that. And you also can't just like compartmentalize it and never look into it.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes if you let yourself sit in stuff for too long, you can almost just like keep it going. Like I have been known to put on a sad playlist and just let myself feel my
Oh, let me
feelings.
tell you.
Well, let me tell you about sad music. I used to do this thing in high school with my friends that we called Wallow Day. And we would like go to one of our friends' house and we would just like put on a movie marathon of just like really tragically sad movies that would make
Mm.
us cry. And I don't know what that said about us, but I feel like we
But
just
you're
like
a teenager.
we were
Like,
just like hormonal and needed a day to cry, and we
yeah.
needed a reason to sit down and do it with others. And you know what? I highly recommend it, honestly. It was a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
At the end of it, we would like eat ice cream and we'd be like, great, okay, back to like our regularly
Yeah.
scheduled programming.
Yeah. But sometimes you just need to get it out. I remember in college, there was like a period of time where I was like talking with this boy who didn't deserve my time and he was being horrible. And I just put on Adele's album and I just laid there on my really gross futon in my dorm and I just felt sorry for myself. And I just sat there, felt sorry for myself. While like her tragic love songs played. And like, was it over the top? Yes. But was it needed? Also, yes. And I remember my friend walked in on me doing that and she was like, "Are you good?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Like,
I'm
what's
fine."
happening in here?
It's like honestly, like I am okay. But I needed this. And
Yep.
that's okay too. And the last one we wanted to chat about is just the idea of like questioning yourself because and like the choices that you make.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of times we are hard on ourselves for asking ourselves questions internally, if that makes sense. I said yourself a lot there, so if you didn't catch that, that's fair. But just I don't know, I think
Just
about
like
this.
feelings of self-doubt, which are natural.
Yeah. Yeah, or for example, like I've been in a relationship for almost 6 years. Like that's a long time. And you can ask yourself like, "Hey, do I want to still be in a relationship? I've been in one for a really long time. Like, is that something that I want to keep doing?" Like, that's a normal question to
Mhm.
ask yourself.
Right,
And I
and
feel
the
like,
asking of it doesn't imply
no,
anything bad. It's just it's a natural thing to be pondering things,
to,
especially when it comes to, like, big life decisions or things like that.
totally just like check in. And clearly my answer has been, yeah, because it's been a while. So clearly I keep saying yes to my own brain. But I think sometimes we don't stop and ask ourselves these questions or let ourselves answer questions honestly in our own
Mhm.
heads. And we'll wake up one day and be like, what am I doing?
Yep.
I feel like Rebecca, you kind of had that moment in college when like
Oh,
you were
yeah.
pre-med.
Yeah, I
And
was
then you
like
woke up and you're like, what am I doing?
yep. I had, like, decided in high school I was gonna be a doctor, specifically, I wanted to be a pediatrician, and I just, like, got to college and just started doing all of the science and pre-med classes, like, all the while not being good at any of those classes and having a really hard time with them, struggling immensely, like, crying over it, like, it was tanking my GPA even though all my other classes were going great that didn't have to do with science, and one day it was just kinda like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, is this the path for me if it's this painful, if it's bringing me this much misery? Like, and also, if I continue to do this, I'm also then going to have to go to med school, which is going to be a lot of similar things and like similarly difficult things in this field. Like, maybe maybe I need to stop and question it. And I honestly, like, one of my biggest, like, that I really feel like I have a lot of regrets, but one thing I wish I had thought about sooner was to question myself about my decision to do pre-med in college and like try to be a doctor. It's just like, why did I want to do that? Why did I think it was the path forward, and did I feel like it was the only path, and why did I not question sooner, like, hey, maybe there's an alternate way to do this that, maybe I don't necessarily give it up, but maybe I try something else first or try other things to see if that I find other things that I like. And I wish I hadn't waited so long. It was like the end of college that I decided to pivot to something else. And I could have been maybe spending all of that time trying out other things, but I didn't let myself question my first choice. I was like, well,
Mhm.
I said I'm going to be pre-med, so I'm going to do it and I'm not going to think more about it. And like to consider otherwise would be just like unimaginable. But as soon as I started doing it, I realized that I was just like, a lot of the answers to those questions were right there, but I hadn't let myself think about them.
Totally. And I think sometimes we forget that, like, our thoughts are safe in our own head. Like,
Right, right. Thoughts aren't actions.
right. They're
Thoughts
safe up
aren't
there.
even always like actual intentions or like your true
Right.
feelings. Like sometimes your mind lies to you. Sometimes your mind just
Totally.
throws out wild, out of left field thoughts for you to consider that you just go, whoa, and dismiss
So,
it,
whoa. Yes.
Or it's
And
like,
that can be
when you ever get that feeling when you're like on like a really high building or something and you're like, what if I just like threw my phone over the edge or something? You know what I mean? Like something like
yes.
crazy and you're just like, I'm not going to do
Yes.
that. But why does my mind do that?
Or those thoughts, I don't or, like, you're driving and you're like, "What if I just, like, stopped driving?" Or, like
Right, right. You're like in a meeting, you're like, what if I just like said something wild
crazy.
right
Yeah,
now?
like, what if I just screamed? You know what I mean? And it's like, you can spend so much time, like, telling yourself, like, "Why are you doing like, why are you thinking these things? Like, why are you" it could be as silly as, like, obviously, I'm not gonna throw my phone off the bridge, like
Yeah.
or it can be something like, "Maybe I don't wanna be a doctor."
Yeah.
Or maybe, maybe I don't wanna be in a relationship. Like, you're allowed to ask yourself those questions.
Right. Like thinking it through and just posing questions. Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing. Um, and just give you I think what's most important is you just need to give yourself the time and kindness to ask those questions and answer them in your own head where they're safe. Or talk to your therapist.
Yeah. Also safe there.
Also safe there. Um, don't feel bad about yourself for asking a question, you know?
Mm. So thanks for joining us for another episode of Sisterly. Those were our thoughts on feelings that you might have and feel bad about, but you shouldn't feel bad about, and why. And we hope you enjoyed it, and we can't wait to see you on the next episode.